we ended up losing like maybe 20K on that house through, you have successes and failures, and you can't just say, you know what, that project's over, I'm going to move off to the next project. I feel I've always coached throughout my career. I'm actually 53 years old, and I've done 25 marathons. It's not just the money. It's truly helping others. You know, I've had a lot of people help me through my journey, and now it feels good to give back.
Hey everyone, I have Toni Castronovo here. He is a phenomenal human being. He's a mentor, he's a coach. He's been working in management and consulting for over 25 years and now has quit his W-2 and is living his dream. Not only does he run marathons, have a phenomenal family, does real estate, but also loves transforming lives and help others design their life as well. So without further ado, Toni Castronovo, everyone. Hey everybody, so we have Toni here. Toni was working a W-2 job, but he has transitioned into a full-time real estate professional and an entrepreneur. Toni, tell me a little bit more about how this transition happened, because it's very heartfelt, you know, for a lot of people out there who feels trapped. How'd you get started in this?
Yeah. I like that word trap, because that's the feeling that I know I had, and I'm sure others, you know, have something similar. I think at some point, I mean, first of all, some people love what they do for a profession, right, and that's fantastic. It's not like there's this better world of being an entrepreneur. It's just different. And some people want to do that, and maybe they just don't know how, or maybe can't get past a limiting belief on getting that steady paycheck and what happens once you go and leave the comfort of a W-2 job, right? So for me, I think the biggest catalyst was COVID. And so as we were going through lots of learnings through COVID, I was working for a Big Four consulting firm, and I'd been with them for maybe 12 years or so. And I knew I wanted to move on. I had been wanting to be an entrepreneur for probably 8 years, and I was running my business on the side. And I kept raising my hand to say, look, you know, I'll take a package if we're going to lay people off. I'm ready. And the answer I kept getting was, you're good. No, don't worry about it. And so finally I had been courted by another firm, and I kept telling them I'm not ready to jump. And they said, what if we give you a signing bonus equal to your package? So I was like, So I jumped. And I spent about 8 months working for this smaller firm, and it was a bit of a downward spiral, and that just taught me that, you know what, way too much stress, life is too short, now is the time, this has to be a message, and so I jumped, and here I am.
Now, you've done what you have done before in management and consulting for 25 plus years, right?
Yeah.
You know, during that time, at what point did you realize, you know what, this isn't for me? Like, how many years did it take out of that 25 for you to realize that?
Probably a good 20. I mean, I loved what I was doing. It was fun. It was exciting. I was traveling. I was surrounded by amazing people. And to this day, I still love that aspect. I still associate with many of those folks from my team. And I'd always told myself that the day that I can't continue to be a role model for my team and show that I'm giving it 100%, that's when I need to step back. And so as my side gig back in 2014 is when I started that, started to progress and started to become more and more of my passion, and I was spending more of my time and brain power, that's when I think there was this inflection of, okay, it's time. And I put a timeline to it. It's just COVID kind of screwed all that up, but I had
Right.
a timeline.
What's your side gig, Tony?
Well, the side gig was real estate, and
Real
I
estate.
started. Yeah, I mean, I know we're in multifamily together, and
Yeah.
I did make the switch to multifamily in 2018. But before that, I started buying and holding single family homes
Ah.
and just being a landlord. And, kind of for those that have ever listened to Bigger Pockets podcasts, I was doing the Burr method where I was basically refinancing properties, pulling my cash out, going off and doing the next one. And
Right.
I started building this portfolio of properties.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Now, when you transition, or what made you want to do that side gig to begin with? Because a lot of people out there, they're happy with their job, right? And that's all they want to do. And some people venture out and do a side gig. What pushed you to do that initially?
I think way back in kind of the late 90s, yeah, I had seen a relative that was doing something up in Ohio. He was buying these homes and he was fixing them up himself. He was a pretty handy guy, and then he was renting them out. And I was like, this is awesome. He's making this extra money on the side. I had a background in construction, and so I always loved doing that kind of work. And so I thought one day I'm gonna do something like that. And I read all the books, and
Yeah.
I actually started a company. I was going to do this in about 2001, 2002, and then life happened. My kids were born. Or still have twin boys. They were born in 2002, and so life just got real complicated in a hurry. And so I put it on hold, and fast forward 12 more years, and I finally had the guts to do it in 2014.
Wow. Tony, until recently, when you sent over your information, I didn't know you had twin boys. I thought it was just always the one boy. So,
You know what? You see the one boy because even though they're twins, they're very different. And
okay.
and the one that you see most often has been involved in real estate with
Right.
me,
Right.
going through a bit of a mentoring program, and we can dive in at some point about the who not how thing. You inspired me earlier in the year, and that he's the storyline for that. But that's
Wow.
why you see a lot of that, because he's really, embraced a lot of coaching from me.
Is he eventually going to be your right hand guy, your who?
No,
No. Okay.
no. He, he's happy to learn and kind of, grow with me here.
Yeah.
But he's pretty adamant that he does not really like the real estate field. And, he goes with me on all my apartment tours, and,
Right.
we'll spend a weekend working on something at the apartments. But the mentoring program was not just real estate. It was on personal finance as well.
That's awesome. Now, you're running this mentoring program. Are you doing it on your own, or do you have help? Do you have staff? How are you doing it?
So what I took my son through was completely, father son. I'm putting him through mentoring program.
Uh-huh.
But my coaching program, which is called Grit to Growth,
Okay.
that is something that I recently started. It's by myself for now. It's something that it's funny. I keep my 2022 goals on my desk every day, and I occasionally pull them out. I mean, of course, they're up here. I got them to memory. This was nowhere on my 2022 goals.
Wow.
This was something that I think, as I reflect back, came out of the honeybee approach. If you've read the honeybee,
Yes.
from Jake and Gino,
Yes.
yeah.
What, so you said the honeybee approach. A lot of people that could be listening to this might not understand what the honeybee approach is. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? And because it wasn't on your 2022 goal, how did this come about?
Yeah, so the Honeybee is a book that was written by Gina Barbaro and Jake Stenziano. The crux of it, it's a fable. It's a very entertaining book, but the crux of it is sometimes having multiple streams of income can help to get you to your goal than really just focusing on a single source and hoping and praying that single source pans out. Having multiple streams is a great way to diversify and also open doors. And so the coaching business certainly opened doors for me, but it was an exercise that I was going through where, first of all, I was looking for multiple streams of income because as a full-time multifamily real estate investor, most of what I do is I build wealth. And that comes over time. There is cash flow and there's fees and so forth that you can get off these properties. But until you really get moving and you have a number of assets, that comes a little slower. That is not a quit your job today and replace your income tomorrow.
Right, right.
So as I started recognizing that, hey, I'm building wealth, I'm buying multifamily buildings and I'm putting them on my conveyor belt of sorts. We can talk about that, but these assets are running down a timeline on a conveyor belt, and when they come off the timeline, they're going to spill into additional assets that I can then purchase and then continue the flow and keep on adding these assets to my timeline. But in between, I still got to make money.
Right.
And so I put together a bit of a model, and I started just listing everything that I either wanted to do, I could do, I thought would be cool. And then I looked at it and I said, okay, scale of 1 to 10. What's my skill level in doing any of these things? Okay, scale of 1 to 10. What's my excitement level in doing any of these things? Scale of 1 to 10. How passive are these things? How much of my time is it going to consume? And when I went through that whole exercise and I kind of aggregated and scored everything and sorted and bubbled everything up to the top, it was interesting to see that 3, 4, 5 items all kind of grouped up. And they were all related to coaching. And I said, you know what, that's a sign. I never planned for this, but I'm going to research and then put myself through a program to get certified, and then I'm going to launch a business, and I'm going to help other entrepreneurs to do essentially what I've been working toward.
That's exciting. That's exciting in itself. You mentioned you get excited, for this coaching program. That's going to be high on the excitement level. What makes you so excited about it? Is it just be able to, because it's not as simple as, hey, you're going to make money from it, but what gives you joy? What fulfills you about the coaching program?
So I'm glad you asked, because I think, going back to the topic of the show, which is life by design, this is part of my life by design. I didn't even know it was part of my life by design, but it came to me. Okay, so when I say life by design, as I start planning for not just what's next for me, but where does my journey go over the next, hopefully, a couple of decades or more, I started thinking, okay, I need something that I can have as a profession well into my 60s and 70s. I need something that's flexible on time, because I don't want the 9 to 5, 8 to 5 or more. I want something that I can choose how much time I spend, with who, and when I do it, and where I do it. Something that is completely flexible on location. And part of that is that I've always had a vision that I would spend the last couple decades of my life in the mountains somewhere, outside in nature with my wife, with my dog. We love to run, hike, ski. Just being in that is really the vision. And so how do I make that happen? And so this is part of that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, now that you feel like you are able to design the life that you really want to be doing for the next 20, 30, 40 years, because you're still a young guy. I mean, a big thing that you do, you see those medals sitting behind you. A lot of people don't know. You do a lot of running competition. You do like marathons, half marathons. Tell us a little bit more about that. How do you keep yourself in shape and in good health?
So I'm not that young. I'm actually 53 years old, uh, and I've done 25 marathons.
Whew.
And I'll tell you a little secret here.
Okay.
Just this week, I I signed up for one more marathon.
Wow.
I always say I'm done. I don't need to keep running marathons. Why am I doing this at 53 years old? But it's the Houston Marathon I've done 18 times.
Holy
And
moly.
and it's not even about the medals or the training or anything, to be honest with you. It is a super special event to me. And not just the day of the event, the journey that we take. And I say we, me and friends that I surround myself with in my community that really go through a lot of adversity to get to the start line. And I can tell you, over the 20 years that I've been running the Houston Marathon, all the adversity from the very first one, which was just a few short months after 9/11, super emotional race. We didn't even know we were going to do the race because if you can recall back, they weren't holding any major large group events, especially outside.
Right.
Right. And so people were afraid. They didn't know what to expect and all these precautions. And so it was scary. And I'm like, wow, this is my first marathon and I got all this, right? Then we went through, well, a couple of just key ones. Went through Hurricane Harvey in 2017.
Yeah.
And my entire community was like wiped out. I spent a month helping friends to gut their houses, and many of them gave up their training and couldn't even get to the start line because they were so tied up rebuilding their homes and so forth. And and then of course COVID, and there's so many big adversities that people go through, and that's why I do it, because I love being there on a Sunday morning at 5 o'clock in the morning when everybody's gathering and they're getting ready to run 26 miles. And whether it's their first time or their 30th time, it's butterflies. And I break down crying at the finish line of every single race.
Wow.
It's so emotional.
Absolutely. No, definitely sounds like it's a huge connection to who you are and the community that you're with. I mean, from what I hear, I've never ran a marathon. Nor do I intend to, by the way, Tony. But I'll let you run mine. Yeah. It's a mental toughness, in a marathon that a lot of people talk about. Do you feel that it's the same way? Is it more physical for you? Is it more mental? What's the tougher part?
Yeah, it's both. I mean, I would be naive to say that there's not a physical component. You
Right.
train, you do these runs and you build up to it. You train on your nutrition, your sleep, your hydration, all this stuff in addition to just the running aspect. But it's a lot of mindset. And even silly things like, okay, you're supposed to do a 12-mile run on Saturday. Oh, it's raining out. What do you do? Well, you know what? It could be raining on race day. So you have to suck it up and get out there and convince yourself that you're not going to melt. And it's just little things like that. But when you're in the race, there's often pain management because it hurts. When you get to mile 22, 23, I haven't met anybody that says they felt awesome at that point.
Right.
Right? And
I
so
can't imagine.
you just have to figure out how you're going to work through it and take your mind off of it. And And then there's some people get bored. It's a long time to be out there. So how do you entertain yourself?
How do you entertain yourself?
Some days I'm solving the world's problems. And other days, I'm talking real estate to people. Teaching
So
them
you're running and talking at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So you make a lot of friends out there. And
I could barely breathe, let alone talk.
yeah. Well, that's an interesting thing, too. When you first start training for marathons, you get taught slow it down so you can actually have a conversational pace. Because it's a long way to go.
Right. Wow. Does any of your family members do it with you? Your wife, your kids, or is this your thing?
So my other son that is not in my mentoring program, he actually runs. He hasn't run in a while, but he's actually done a 10-miler with me, which is very cool. It was very ad hoc. We were driving to a 5K, and I said, look, it's kind of silly. It's 3 miles. Come on. I said, let's just do 10. And he was like, okay.
Wow.
So, but my wife has signed up for her 50th birthday next May to do the Yosemite half marathon.
Oh, wow.
It's actually on her birthday. It's close to you, so if you have a bug.
I'll come out and root for you guys, maybe.
You
do that.
certainly can.
There's no way I'm going to be part of the run. I'll be like, yay! When's her birthday? May what?
It's May 6th.
May 6th. Awesome. Yeah.
So we're kind of trying to pull a bit of a team together, get some other folks to run with us, but also we're going to run a big Airbnb and just have a lot of fun and hang out for a few days.
Okay, that sounds awesome. Yeah. Now, Toni, towards the end of here, I always like to know, you have done what you've done. You've incorporated your family, your son. Your wife is definitely involved as well, right? I see her, at least in pictures, right? What does she do? How involved is she in the coaching or how does she incorporate, now that you're kind of free a lot more, right? Is she still tied up in a job or is she working at home or does she work remote? Tell me a little bit more about that.
So she was a stay-at-home mom for many, many years.
Right.
And then I forget how far back, let's just say maybe 8-ish years or so, she became a real estate agent. So she was out there doing residential real estate for several years. And then she kind of went through a little transition. She got into like transaction coordination a little bit, helping other real estate agents to get their deals done and so forth. And then most recently for me, she's been really working on my short-term rental business. So we started another business, I guess, about April of this year. And so it wasn't that we said, let's go start a short-term rental business. But part of that vision is that we said we want to get out to the mountains. Well, how do we do that? Well, we go buy a place in the mountains. How do we do that? We turn it into an Airbnb until we're ready to full-time transition into it.
Right.
So we went out and bought a place out in Park City, Utah, and we've turned
beautiful place, beautiful house, by the way.
Thank you. We love it, and our guests love it too. And it's kind of a new business. It's not real estate; it's hospitality.
Yeah.
So it's quite different than I'm used to, and I feel my wife is way better at it than I am. Just how she communicates with the guests and how she's furnished the place and thinking through every little functional detail. I mean, it's not the same as just furnishing a house and saying, okay, people, show up and live here. There's a lot of function that goes into it. And she's done great with that. And so she does a lot of that for me or for us. But we joke that I'm the CFO, she's the CEO.
There you go. It's okay.
Yeah.
Now, Toni, if you look back at you were doing your W-2 for 25 years and recently starting the coaching business, the mentorship program, the Airbnb. What were some mistakes that you made along the way? Mistakes that you made along the way, and how did you solve it? What were like the big, maybe big 1, 2 mistakes that you made where you like to share where, gosh, I wish that someone going through the same thing wouldn't be making these mistakes that I made.
It's tough to find like this big life inflection point, but there are a few mistakes sort of in the journey of, say, real estate that I've made. I remember when I first got started in real estate, the shiny object syndrome, right? So I got that first single family house, turned it into a rental, check. Okay. Now I'm going to go buy the next one. And I didn't follow my buying criteria. I bought something, you'll laugh. I literally bought a house while I was sitting on the tarmac of a, airport, and I hadn't seen the place. I put in a bid, and when I landed, I won. And then my wife was like, "Are you kidding me? Have you seen this place? Do you see what's in the backyard? Do you see that we're missing a bathroom? It's a 4-bedroom house with 2 bathrooms. One was the master, one was upstairs for the rest of the bedrooms. There was no guest bathroom." So, they never thought about that in the 70s. So, long story short is we made a big mistake on that house, and that was a flip. That was my first flip. And we ended up losing like maybe $20K on that house.
Ooh.
And we could have broke even, but the biggest mistake that I made was kind of chasing the nickels, right? Where I had an offer on the house from a first-time home buyer, and they got the inspection report, and then they gave us a list of all these things that they wanted fixed. And first-time home buyer, they were very scared of everything in the inspection report. Most people who've ever looked at an inspection report realize that it's exhaustive, right?
Right.
Every little crack here or there, it's on the report. Of course. And so we decided to push the easy button, and we were going to give them a cash concession at closing. They freaked out over that because they probably had no idea what stuff costs, and they thought it cost a whole lot more than it really did. But despite that fair counter that we gave, they walked away, and then that deal sat there. It looked like it was aging, from a listing perspective. So we didn't get any bites. I was in a hard money loan. That came to term. All of a sudden, I had to refinance it again at like 15% interest rate, couple of points. It was just a downward spiral, and we finally got out of it, lost $20K, and said, we're not flipping houses again.
Right.
Let's go back to the buy and hold Burr model. Let's buy the 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses in the same neighborhoods that we've been farming all along. So you go back to the basics.
If you were to do that again, would you have, like, say if that flip had to happen anyways, right? Would you have, say, maybe I should have done the due diligence on it first, like seen it first? What would you have done differently if you had to flip it?
Yes, I would have seen it first, and I would have taken my wife with me. Because just that simple little thing, like the fact that we didn't have a half bath cost me $6,000. So, that was 6 of the 20. I mean, simple little thing that visually you could look at it. And it's not that we would have said we're not going to buy it, but we would have adjusted our numbers to accommodate for it.
Right.
But it didn't dawn on me. And, I think other things like contractor relationships, I was still early kind of in my real estate career, and I don't even know how I found this one contractor, but he wasn't the most efficient. He was a very dramatic person, and so everything was artistic, which meant it was expensive.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a bunch of things, smaller lessons learned that I would have kind of, pieced together to make that a much better flip.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Going back to going from your W-2 to now coaching, would you have done this sooner? Have you known what it was going to be like, or do you think it was the perfect time that you did it?
I actually think it's the perfect time
Okay.
because I'm super passionate about it.
Right.
Partly because I feel I've always coached throughout my career. I've had a lot of teams and I always focused on the people side of our business. I had a lot of different responsibilities for building career development models and coaching programs and mentoring programs and onboarding programs. And I did all of that through my consulting career. So I always felt like the people aspect was a passion. But then as I spent about 14 months now transitioning from a W-2 into being a full-time real estate entrepreneur, that taught me a lot of things. The jump to get out of the W-2 job and that fear and that catalyst that you need to actually make that jump, that's a big part of it. And most people kind of see that and say, if I can just get past that fear, I can make the jump. But then once they're there, then what? You kind of go through this cycle of the honeymoon period where you're like, hey, tomorrow I can wake up whenever I want and I can do anything I want and I can stay up as late as I want. Of course you can.
Yeah.
Then how do you work through all the mindset shifts that you go through? You have successes and failures, and you can't just say, you know what, that project's over, I'm going to move off to the next project like maybe you do it at your W-2. This is like, well, I got to make this work.
Yeah. This is
And
it.
how? Yeah. So there's a lot of emotion that goes through it. And I would have loved to have had a coach through my transition. I have lots of coaches now, but I think I'm right where I need to be at this point.
That's a very like a grounding type of saying I'm really happy for you and to hear that, because a lot of people will say, oh, I wish I would have done it sooner, and very few people that I've talked to would say, you know what, this is the right time and you're at peace with it, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
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 And it's been great. I've been coaching clients and just seeing them have these breakthroughs and the value that I can give to them. You stated earlier, it's not just the money. It's truly helping others. And I've had a lot of people help me through my journey,
Right.
and now it feels good to give back.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, the final question, Tony, I have for you is, if you are to write a letter to yourself, say 20 years ago, right? Or maybe someone who is in their late 20s, 30 years old, who is thinking, they hear this, they said, maybe I want to transition out of my W-2 and maybe do real estate, right? What would you share with them? What's like one top advice you'll give them for that transition?
I think if I was writing a letter to my younger self or to somebody who might be 20 years younger, the biggest thing that I see is people are always like reaching, always coveting, always, one day I'll do this, and oh, if I could only do that. And I think what is most important is that all of your experiences that you're gathering now, whether they're good, bad, kind of in between, they're all shaping you. They're all guiding you to something. And this is your journey, and it's very unique. And you don't have to look at other people and say, man, I wish I could be like that guy. I mean, you have full control over your journey, but don't discount all these experiences that you're getting. Even if something's painful, there's a reason why it's painful. It's guiding you to something better.
That's very insightful, Tony. Thank you so much. I need to hear that myself. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Tony, your journey on how you have designed your life, sharing with us your mentorship with young kids and your coaching program as well. And I want to congratulate you on your transition and wish you a lot of success in everything that you do in real estate and the coaching and whatever endeavors you might have. Short-term rentals.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
thank you for being on the show, Tony.
Well, thank you for having me, Alex. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, thank you guys for watching this amazing video. If you loved the video, press like and smash that subscribe button. Tony was amazing. And if you want to see other amazing videos like him, another real estate investor, Trevor, or another podcast with Dr. James Lefevre or Dr. Landry, click here. I'll see you on the next one.